So Bondi Beach, there is definitely something very sinister going on there. Now, obviously, we've addressed Arsen Ostrovsky and his direct connection to what appears to be a false flag. There is no question that you have often said anytime these attacks spring up out of nowhere, especially in a place like Australia, where it appears to be almost impossible to get firearms into that country. And yet, not only did these assassins get firearms in, they got in assault weapons. Now, you tell me, Jen, how that was possible.
Well, that's what I said from the very first time we addressed this. You know, when things like that happen here, it's just any other day. That's not a big deal, you know, and I think people in this country, we're so jaded by it at this point. It's like, you know, we've had more mass shootings than days in the year. So it's just, but in Australia, that doesn't happen. They don't have firearms like we do here. They don't have access to firearms. It's not a thing there. So for this to happen there is way, way bigger of a deal than when it happens here in terms of the backstory and how did they get that and how did it, you don't have to, here it could be a million different ways. There's not a million different ways to get that kind of, to get those kinds of firearms.
Mehdi, you're going to have to send me an email with that information because I haven't heard any such thing. As far as I know, no one is just walking into some random gun shop in Australia. At least that's my understanding. So if you have anything you can share through email, by all means, you can send it. Now, this lady's name is Gadilia Blum, an Israeli who says Western nations need to rewrite all their laws in the wake of the Bondi Beach shooting to fight anti-septicism, as we'll call it. You know, we have to come up with code words here. But here's what this nincompoop had to say.
Today, the trains left the station. Anti-Semitism is rising, not just in Australia, where they had a more than 300% spike, but in every country year on year, not only since October 7th, since before, and certainly since the start of the war. Can the train be put back in the station, or has it already left? And this 8th front is actually the new, hardest and longest front that we are going to be fighting.
So I think there's two things that need to be addressed. Number one is that the West needs to wake up. The Christians need to wake up to see what's going on the streets of their own cities. Once they wake up, then they have to do another thing. They have to look at their laws and realize that those laws were written in this homogenous era where everybody kind of agreed to a certain culture and a certain area. When you're in France, you became French. The laws were written with that in mind for thousands of years. We're not living that era anymore. They have to go against.
Anytime I see this, I am convinced that the call is coming from inside the house, as you like to say.
Every time now. I will think that every time. And that's unfortunately what happens. That's the whole problem with the boy who cried wolf, right? Because every time I'm seeing the vandalism like this, I do believe that, and probably not every time. I'm sure that there's ones that are random, but that's what happens when you lie so many times, nobody believes you. But I do think a bulk of the time that it's done by insiders to provoke this, to provoke this idea that there is so much anti-Semitism. They want to keep perpetuating that idea. So yes, I do think the call is from inside the house.
Their own laws. They can't be on this soapbox of liberal democracy and everybody's free and equal. Again, it goes back to being hijacked by tolerance. You can't be tolerant to the people that you bring in that are not respective of your laws, that are having grooming gangs, that are going out on the streets and inciting murder and violence.
We are committing murder and violence, but they're inciting murder and violence. Do you see? You see the connection here?
Yes. Yes.
Because people are marching in the streets with the Palestinian flag, and you don't like to see that? And these, honestly, I don't understand. I mean, credit where credit's due to the protesters, the Palestinians, and just Muslims in general who allow little squeaky bastards like this guy in the middle right here, who probably is like running up to them and either hitting them or trying to grab their stuff from them. Or, as we mentioned earlier, a man who was praying and some Zio decided he was going to run him over with a quad. I would not be so gentle. I would not be so considerate. In fact, I would be pretty aggressive. I don't know how they have it in them to look the other way, but maybe that's the plan. Maybe the whole plan is nonviolent resistance will ultimately win out the day. Maybe it will, but I get really sick and tired of seeing these people and the actions that they're able to get away with.
That is not free speech. And I think that these people need to realize, and you're starting to see this in Germany, you're starting to see this even in France, that the police are taking clubs to the heads of these protesters. And I think that, and you're seeing with the rise of Tommy Robinson, like him or hate him, whatever you want to do, his voice is a voice of millions of people in Great Britain.
I don't think so.
Notice how Tommy Robinson does that Unite the Rally event that was pushed by Elon back in the summer or the beginning of the summer. And he had about, for being completely fair, about 100 to maybe 150,000 people probably showed up at that event. It was pretty big. Like, they got a lot of people to show up. The Christmas event, or I think it might have been a Thanksgiving event that he did within the last couple of weeks, 1,000 people showed up for that one.
Yeah,
So
but isn't he like in exile now? Like, wasn't he like leaving the country?
No, and apparently he just attempted to, I don't know if he was trying to seek asylum in Dubai, but he was in Dubai and then he got kicked out. They kicked him out of Dubai. So his usage for the Zio state has been reduced significantly. So I don't know what the hell this guy's talking about. But propaganda is as propaganda does, I guess.
Who want their country back. And I think that it comes down to the fact, are they willing to go against their own set of laws and values that they've had, that they held on so tight, in order to be able to fix the problem? Because it's not going to be able to be fixed under the current framework of the law.
Yeah, I think that goes without question. We are starting to see some initiatives pop up, certainly in Washington, D.C., the new Judeo-Christian Zionist Congress, and, riling up.
What did she just say?
The new Judeo-Christian Zionist Congress? Is that what she said?
Of the law.
Yeah, I think that goes without question. We are starting to see some initiatives pop up, certainly in Washington, D.C., the new Judeo-Christian Zionist Congress.
The new Judeo-Christian Zionist Congress, as if the Congress we already have isn't Judeo-Christian Zio enough. How hilarious is that? Our Congress is completely operated as a Judeo-Christian Zionist entity, and yet that's not enough for them. They need to create a literal Judeo-Christian Zionist Congress.
Well,
that's hilarious. How much more Zionist can something be than our Congress?
Well, the big difference now is that now they're just saying it. For the longest time, they would say, oh, you're being antiseptic, if you will. How dare you suggest that our Congress is owned and controlled by the Zio state? And now this lady is coming out and saying, and this new Zio state-run Congress, that's really the beauty of the Trump era. The filter is completely gone. I don't know if this person is trying to be funny or not, but yeah, they're probably.
Well, she's talking about another, like an outside organization, like an NGO or something that they're creating. She's not talking about literal Congress. I just think it's hilarious that they would need to create something outside of what already exists as a complete Zio Congress.
And to make a slight U-turn or an off-ramp for a second, because I noticed what Rachel just said. What in God's name kind of a necklace is this woman wearing? Like,
it's kind of cool. That's what I was trying to look at before. I actually like cool stuff like that. But when you're doing television and when you're doing broadcasting, it's really not a good idea to wear very distracted, kind of loud stuff, because it's hard to make out exactly what it is. So it's a poor choice for this occasion, but it's not an entirely uncool necklace. But I would need to see it in person.
Well, this is, again, gets back to, again, as our conversation comes full circle with somebody like Katie Miller, who's sitting there with the Speaker of the House and dressing like a very inappropriate fool.
Yeah, it's fair. Yeah. And quite honestly, even, and again, and I hate to pick at how people are in terms of presentation, but even her hair looks like she just threw it together and stuck it behind in a scrunchie with it pieces sticking out. And the problem with that is that this is supposed to be some sort of professional, mainstream looking platform, or at least that's how they're presenting themselves. They're presenting themselves as somewhat professional. And yet she looks like she was just hanging out and they said, hey, we need you to come on and do this show. And she quickly put her hair up and threw on some guy's jacket and just sat down there. I don't know. It just doesn't look like these people are really like, they're all just stuck in there like pod people, because anybody who would have said anything remotely journalistic or truthful has been kicked to the curb so many years ago. So what we're left with are just sort of a bunch of these girls that seemingly just have to fill in and just do this.
That's a fair point.
Riling up millions and millions of Christians to work together to hopefully be able to combat this, not in terms of theology, but actually in terms of exactly what you're saying, security, Western values, and policy. Now, unfortunately, we are out of time tonight.
Yeah, and your whole conversation is out of bounds, much less out of time. This is, again, why I'm convinced that whatever went down at Bondi Beach is not anywhere near what people are making it out to be, because there is universal message going around now that we have to ratchet up the censorship and the anti-gun movement even harder. Money talks, justice walks. If you pay the toll, if you will, there will be a politician who will come out and say exactly what you want them to say. And if this whole idea that we now have to push for
Jews under fire, will the West lose its Jews? To where? Where are we going?
Yeah,
where are we going?
Again, just making stuff up as they go along. That's the problem. And it's not going to last. We keep saying it, and I'm going to keep saying it. This can't possibly last. I just don't see any scenario. But they're going to try every which way to try to hold us back. That's what they're going to do. And when you look at how all these pieces just continue to prove time and again, like with the swastikas, your first instinct is to say, oh, that was done by somebody who probably goes to that synagogue.
Yeah. Or somebody who hired somebody to do that. Somebody from that synagogue hired somebody to do it is probably more likely, but yes.
And then when you have somebody who's going on TV on behalf of the state of Israel saying, oh, look what happened at Bondi Beach. We have to do this, that, and the other thing in the West. Otherwise, we're going to lose the Jews.
What do you mean lose the Jews? How are we getting lost? I don't understand what that means. What do they mean?
It's the Jews.
What do they mean lose the Jews?
Yeah. Well, again, everything.
What is that? No, I'm serious. Do they mean like losing us to? Well, I don't know what that means. Like, what are they talking about?
What it means is that we haven't gone far enough in terms of censorship. So it's going to get so much worse.
No, but I just don't know what they mean in terms of, are they going to lose where are they losing us? Like, are we going to be lost? Where are we losing? Like, I don't know what that means.
Well, I know this much. Right now, we are not controlled by the Zio state through Google/YouTube. But if the Ellisons have their way and continue to create this entire monopolistic control over our media, who's to say that our channel will not be gone soon enough?
Oh, I say it at any time it could all just be pulled out, and not just us. Any media that's speaking out or saying things that's against the narrative of the global elite, anybody who's speaking out against, what's going on right now, I think is at risk of having our rug pulled out from under us, for sure.